The grand assembly hall of Concordia Space Station hummed with the quiet murmurs of dozens of species. Light from distant stars filtered through the massive, transparent dome overhead, casting an ethereal glow on the gathered representatives of the Galactic Council. The hall was a testament to cooperation among vastly different civilizations, a sprawling semicircle of delegation platforms, each customized for the comfort and biological needs of its occupants. Chairwoman Lyra Vane surveyed the chamber with practiced composure. Her Xylosian features, crystalline skin that refracted light in subtle rainbow patterns, and elongated, graceful limbs, marked her as a member of one of the oldest pacifist races in the known galaxy. 5 centuries of diplomatic service had left her with an unshakable calm that had become legendary among council members. The subcommittee's proposal regarding the mining rights dispute in the Helios cluster seems reasonable, she said, her melodic voice carrying effortlessly through the hall's perfect acoustics. Does any delegation wish to raise objections before we move to formalize the resolution? Security Chief Kalen, a towering figure of the warrior Vex species, stood at attention behind her. His exoskeletal armor gleamed with ceremonial markings of past battles, though they had grown fewer in recent centuries. The Vex lived by a strict honor code that valued controlled strength and defensive prowess. They were fearsome protectors, but rarely aggressors. The security contingent has no concerns with the proposal's enforcement mechanisms, Kalen stated, his gravelly voice resonating through secondary vocal chambers that gave Vex speech its distinctive harmonic quality. Representative Tharn of the Kthar tapped his clawed appendage against the neural interface of his station. The spindly scientist's compound eyes flicked rapidly between multiple data displays. Like most Kthar, Tharn approached every situation with meticulous skepticism bordering on paranoia, an evolutionary adaptation from their harsh homeworld. The geological survey data appears incomplete, Tharn clicked. I recommend an additional verification period of at least 1 stellar cycle before. His words were cut short by a piercing alarm that reverberated throughout the station. The chamber's ambient lighting shifted to a warning amber as holographic displays materialized above the central podium. Security breach? Kalen immediately moved closer to Chairwoman Vane, his posture shifting to combat readiness. A communications officer, a Trellin with glistening blue membranes, rushed to the central platform. Early warning systems have detected an unidentified fleet approaching from Vector 279-54-112, she reported, her voice betraying the fear her species couldn't help but broadcast empathically. Approximately 37 vessels of unknown configuration. That sector hasn't even been fully mapped, Representative Tharn said, his analytical mind already calculating possibilities. There are no charted civilizations in that direction capable of interstellar travel. Chairwoman Vane maintained her composure. Put on the main display. Have the diplomatic channels been opened as per first contact protocols? The central holographic display expanded, showing grainy imagery of vessels unlike any in Council records. They were angular, asymmetrical constructions of dark metal, with neither the organic curves preferred by biologically inspired designers nor the perfect geometric patterns of mathematically focused species. They showed a utilitarian, almost haphazard design philosophy, as though function had been prioritized over aesthetics to an extreme degree. But what caused a ripple of gasps through the chamber was not their strange configuration. It was the unmistakable stains across their hulls, vast swathes of dried biological matter in a distinctive purple hue. That's... Kalen's voice faltered, something virtually unheard of for a Vex warrior. That's Clack blood. The chamber erupted into chaos. The Clack Empire, a hive consciousness of insectoid warriors that had carved a path of destruction through 3-star systems before establishing a tense border with Council space. They were notoriously aggressive and technologically advanced in biological weaponry. No known species had ever successfully defeated them in direct combat. Impossible, whispered Tharn. The Clack never retreat. They never surrender. Confirmation coming in, the communications officer announced, her membranes now pulsing with anxiety. Long-range scans detect clack wreckage along the fleet's trajectory. Massive casualties. We're picking up distress signals from the remaining clack forces. They've lost nearly 80% of their frontier fleet. Kalen's tactical display showed the devastation. This unknown species tore through the clack defensive perimeter like it wasn't there. Our border monitors show they engaged in direct combat. Less than 14 cycles ago, the council chamber descended into frantic debate. Representatives from militaristic species called for immediate defensive positioning. Others demanded evacuation protocols be initiated. A few voices of reason called for caution and investigation. Silence. Chairwoman Vane rarely raised her voice, making the command all the more effective. We are the Galactic Council. We will not descend into panic at first contact, no matter how unusual the circumstances. She turned to Kalen. What is the fleet doing now? They've stopped at the designated diplomatic boundary, Kalen replied, surprise evident in his voice. They're maintaining position just outside council space. No weapons signatures detected, though our sensors can't penetrate their hull shielding completely. Representative Tharn clicked his mandibles nervously. This could be a natural phenomenon. Perhaps some kind of spatial anomaly destroyed the clack fleet, and these vessels are simply refugees from beyond explored space. Refugees don't arrive with the blood of their enemies displayed on their ships, Kalen countered. This is a warrior's message, a demonstration of strength. As the council continued debating, the communications officer interrupted again. Chairwoman, we're receiving a transmission from the lead vessel. Text only, in standardized mathematical notation. Vane nodded. Put it through. The central display changed to show a simple message that automatically translated across all council language systems. We are humans from Earth. We request to speak. The diplomatic chambers of Concordia were hastily prepared for the unprecedented meeting. The room had been designed for flexibility, capable of accommodating the environmental needs of any known species, but the staff worked with nervous efficiency to set it to approximate Earth standard conditions based on the limited data provided by the human representatives. Security Chief Kalen personally inspected every corner of the room, his Vex senses attuned to any potential threat. His team, the elite Concordia Guard comprised of the finest warriors from a dozen species, was stationed at strategic points throughout the station. If this was some elaborate trap, they would be ready. Your security precautions are excessive, Chairwoman Vane commented as she entered the chamber, her crystalline form shimmering under the adjusted lighting. With respect, Chairwoman, they are insufficient, Kalen replied. These beings destroyed a clack battle fleet. Our entire station security force would be unlikely to stop them if their intentions prove hostile. Representative Tharn joined them, accompanied by a floating array of scanning devices. We know virtually nothing about their biology, technology, or cultural norms. This is unprecedented in Council history. First contact with a species that has already demonstrated military superiority over one of the most aggressive forces in known space. All the more reason to approach with diplomatic caution rather than fearful suspicion, Vane replied calmly. They requested dialogue. They stopped at our boundary. These are not the actions of mindless conquerors. The station's AI announced the approach of the human shuttle. Throughout Concordia, countless beings watched the broadcast with a mixture of fear and fascination. In the diplomatic chamber, tension mounted as the airlock cycled. 3 figures stepped through the doorway. The council representatives tried to hide their surprise. Despite the galaxy's diversity of life forms, few would have expected the humans to appear so conventional, bipedal, symmetrical, with no obvious external adaptations for extreme environments or specialized biological functions. They wore simple, utilitarian garments in muted colors, with minimal ornamentation, nothing like the elaborate ceremonial attire worn by most species at diplomatic functions. The first human stepped forward, a female by apparent dimorphic characteristics, with dark skin and close-cropped silver hair that contrasted with a face suggesting middle age by mammalian standards. She carried herself with effortless dignity. I am Ambassador Evelyn Reed of the Earth Federation, she said, her voice translated through the council systems. Thank you for receiving us. The second human was a tall, broadly built male with weathered features and vigilant eyes that reminded Kalen of veteran Vex warriors. His face bore a scar running from temple to jaw, and his posture suggested constant readiness for action despite his formal attire. General Marcus Thorne, Earth Defense Force, he stated simply, offering no ceremonial greetings. The third human shared subtle facial similarities with the general, a genetically related pair, Thorne surmised. Slighter in build, but with the same intensity in his gaze, he carried several compact devices that Thorne instantly recognized as scientific instruments. Dr. Eris. Thorne, Chief Science Officer, he introduced himself. His eyes darted around the chamber, cataloging details with evident curiosity. Fascinating architectural adaptations for multi-species functionality. Chairwoman Vane performed the traditional Xylosian greeting, a subtle prismatic shift in her crystalline form. I am Chairwoman Lyra Vane. On behalf of the Galactic Council, representing 217 spacefaring civilizations, I welcome you to Concordia. The formal introductions completed, the two delegations seated themselves around the circular table, designed to symbolize equality among all participants. The Council recognizes the Earth Federation as a newly contacted civilization. Vane began. We appreciate your adherence to boundary protocols. However, I must address the circumstances of your arrival. Our sensors detected significant conflict with the Clack Empire along your approach vector. Ambassador Reed nodded calmly. We encountered the Clack approximately 3 weeks ago by our time measurement. They attacked our exploration vessels without provocation or communication. We defended ourselves. The Clack are among the most aggressive species known to the Council, Kalen interjected. Yet in 3 centuries of engagement, no civilization has managed to inflict more than minimal casualties against their hive ships. You apparently decimated an entire battle fleet. General Thorne's expression remained impassive. They attacked. We responded appropriately. Their biological weaponry and hive mind tactical coordination were formidable but ultimately predictable. Once we identified the pattern recognition limits of their distributed intelligence, we exploited the vulnerability. The matter-of-fact description of annihilating what the Council considered an almost unstoppable force sent a chill through the chamber. We disabled their electronic warfare capabilities, the General continued, deployed kinetic weapons systems at precise structural weaknesses, and utilized coordinated multi-vector attacks to overwhelm their response algorithms. When necessary, Special Forces units boarded key vessels to disable command functions. Boarded? Kalen couldn't hide his shock. You sent troops on a Clack ships? The atmospheric composition alone is toxic to most carbon-based life. We adapt, General Thorne said simply. Representative Thorne leaned forward, compound eyes fixed on Dr. Eris Thorne. Your technology signatures are inconsistent with your apparent development level. Your ships utilize principles that suggest early stellar civilization status, yet employ energy manipulation beyond what our models predict for such development. How did humans achieve spacefaring capability? Dr. Thorne exchanged a glance with Ambassador Reed before responding. Earth's development has been unconventional. We advanced through numerous internal conflicts that accelerated certain technological paths while delaying others. Our species evolved in isolation, forcing us to develop independent solutions rather than building on shared galactic knowledge. Internal conflicts? Vane asked. You mean civil wars? Wars between nations, ideologies, resources, Ambassador Reed clarified. Humanity spent millennia divided against itself before unification. It shaped our approach to survival and technological advancement. Kalen studied General Thorne with growing professional respect mixed with wariness. In council space, we observe certain ethical standards of warfare. Non-combatant protection, proportional response, honorable engagement. The Clack reject these principles, but most civilizations evolve toward them as they advance. Where does Earth stand on such matters? General Thorne's gaze hardened. When facing extinction, conventional ethics become luxury we cannot afford. The clack made their intentions clear: total biological assimilation or extermination of our colonies. Honor makes for inspirational historical epics, but poor survival strategies against an enemy that offers no quarter. The statement hung in the chamber like a physical presence. Ambassador Reed diplomatically steered the conversation toward more constructive topics: Earth's governmental structure, resource needs, and potential for cultural exchange. But the initial impression had been made. The humans had arrived with bloodstained ships and no apologies. This is unprecedented. The Novalian delegates' bioluminescent patterns flashed with agitation as the council reconvened in emergency session. We cannot seriously consider admitting a species that decorates their vessels with the biological matter of their defeated enemies. They didn't decorate their ships, Kalen corrected. The clack hemolymph corroded their hull plating during close-quarters combat. They chose not to remove it before diplomatic contact, a tactical decision to demonstrate capability. The council chamber had been in continuous session for nearly 20 standard hours since the human delegation returned to their fleet. Factions had quickly formed along predictable lines. The security-minded species impressed by human military prowess, the scientific community fascinated by their technological anomalies, the philosophers and diplomats concerned about cultural compatibility, and the traditionalists outright opposed to any acceleration of the standard first contact protocols. Chairwoman Vane maintained order with increasing difficulty. We will proceed with fact-based analysis, not emotional reactions. Representative Tharn, please share your preliminary findings. The Kthar scientist activated the central holographic display. Our unmanned probes confirmed the destruction of clack forces in the engagement zone. The combat tactics employed by humans demonstrate surprising efficiency. They specifically targeted communication nodes to disrupt the hive mind advantage, then exploited the resulting coordination failures. The display showed fragmented imagery of human vessels executing maneuvers that seemed recklessly precise, engaging clack ships at distances that should have resulted in their destruction. Most notably, Tharn continued, the human vessels exhibit a technology pattern we haven't encountered before, a hybrid approach that combines relatively primitive propulsion and structural systems with highly advanced energy manipulation, shielding technology, and information systems. What about the probes sent toward their territory? Asked Kalen. Tharn's mandibles clicked in what his species considered a nervous chuckle. They were identified almost immediately. Some were disabled with precise energy pulses that suggest targeting capabilities far beyond their apparent technology level. Others were allowed to collect basic astronomical data before receiving a clear warning to proceed no further. Did they destroy any of our probes? Vane asked. No, Tharn admitted. They demonstrated the capability, but exercised restraint. Several disabled probes were actually repaired before being returned to Council space, with their memory cores intact, but all data regarding human technology methodically deleted. Rumors spread throughout Concordia with each passing cycle. Some claimed the humans were genetically engineered supersolidars from a failed Council experiment. Others suggested they were interdimensional travelers. The more paranoid whispered that they might be synthetic life forms designed to infiltrate organic societies. Away from the public spectacle, Chairwoman Vane arranged a private meeting with Ambassador Reed in one of Concordia's Arboretum chambers, a neutral space filled with photosynthesizing organisms from dozens of worlds. Your arrival has created quite a stir, Ambassador, Vane said as they walked among the alien foliage. Many fear what humans represent. Reed nodded thoughtfully. Fear is a natural response to the unknown. We experienced similar reactions when we first encountered non-human intelligence. The blood on your ships was not intentional symbolism, Reed finished. But we recognized its psychological impact and chose not to remove it before first contact. It seemed prudent to establish a certain understanding from the beginning. Vane studied the human diplomat. You wish to be feared. We wish to be respected, Reed corrected. Earth has learned harsh lessons about appearing vulnerable to potential threats. These lessons, your internal conflicts, tell me about them, Vane requested. Reed paused beside a floating spherical plant with undulating tentacle-like leaves. Humanity nearly destroyed itself multiple times before reaching the stars. World wars, environmental collapse, resource depletion, ideological extremism. We came perilously close to extinction by our own hand. Yet you survived. We adapted, united, learned that our diversity of thought, once the source of our conflicts, could become our greatest strength when properly channeled. Reed's eyes reflected complex emotions. Our unity was forged in shared trauma, Chairwoman. When we finally reached beyond our solar system, we carried that hard-won wisdom with us, along with an absolute commitment to ensuring human survival. The Council has maintained peace among hundreds of species for millennia, Vane noted. Through compromise, shared prosperity, and collective security. An impressive achievement, Reed acknowledged. One we hope to learn from. But you haven't faced an existential threat like the Clack before, have you? Your records suggest containment and border-keeping rather than direct confrontation. Vane couldn't deny it. The Council's strength lies in diplomatic solutions and economic integration, not military action. Different evolutionary paths lead to different priorities, Reed said. Humans understand existential threats intimately. We've been our own worst enemy for most of our history. Perhaps that's why we recognized the Clack for what they were immediately. The conversation shifted to cultural exchange possibilities, but Vane couldn't shake the sense that Ambassador Reed was carefully revealing only selected aspects of human history and motivation, enough to explain their actions without exposing true vulnerabilities. The crisis erupted without warning. Emergency alerts blared throughout Concordia as the Council was hastily reconvened. Kalen, whose species required minimal rest, had been monitoring security channels when the first distress calls arrived. Multiple commercial vessels under attack in the Epsilon sector, he reported grimly. 2 Council member outposts have gone silent. Preliminary identification confirms Void Syndicate signatures. Holographic displays showed the rapidly developing situation. The Void Syndicate, a coalition of renegades, pirates, and black market weapons dealers operating from uncharted regions, had launched coordinated attacks against vulnerable shipping lanes and isolated outposts. They're exploiting the power vacuum created by the Clack fleet's destruction, Tharn observed. With the Clack threat diminished, they've redirected resources to expand their territory. Smaller council members whose territories bordered the affected regions demanded immediate action. The Relaxian ambassador, whose people controlled limited but resource-rich systems, banged his ceremonial staff in frustration. While we debate, my people die. Where's the council fleet that our tribute pays for? The uncomfortable truth lay exposed. The council's defensive capabilities had atrophied during centuries of relative peace. Resources had been directed toward economic development and diplomatic infrastructure. The rapid response fleet existed mostly on paper, with vessels scattered across council space on ceremonial or peacekeeping duties. Assembly and deployment of adequate forces will require at minimum 48 standard hours, Kalen admitted reluctantly. By then, the Syndicate will have secured their positions, the Relaxian ambassador cried. Our colonial outposts have minimal defenses. As the Council descended into recriminations and emergency proposals, a communication officer approached Chairwoman Vane with an urgent message. After reading it, she raised her hand for silence. The human delegation has contacted us, she announced. Ambassador Reed offers Earth Federation assistance in addressing the Void Syndicate incursion as a gesture of goodwill and potential alliance. The chamber erupted again. Some representatives immediately rejected the offer, citing concerns about allowing an unknown military force to operate in council space. Others, particularly those whose territories were under direct threat, advocated just as passionately for acceptance. We know nothing about their true capabilities or intentions, warned the Novalian representative. This could be an elaborate ploy to gain military access to our territories. My people are dying, countered the Relaxian. If humans can provide the protection the Council promised but failed to deliver, we welcome them. The debate continued for precious hours while reports of syndicate attacks multiplied. No consensus seemed possible as the Council found itself paralyzed by fear of both the immediate threat and the uncertain implications of human intervention. The decision was made for them. Chairwoman, Kalen interrupted, his voice uncharacteristically urgent. The Zephyrus, a Meribian refugee transport carrying medical supplies and civilians from the attacked outposts, is under heavy assault by syndicate vessels. They're broadcasting on all emergency channels. The main display showed the bulky transport vessel attempting evasive maneuvers against 5 sleek attack ships. The Zephyrus had diverted toward the outer marker of Concordia space, toward where the human fleet maintained position. The human fleet is moving, Tharn reported, monitoring the sensor feeds. They're on an intercept course with the syndicate attackers. The Council watched in stunned silence as the events unfolded in real time. The human vessels accelerated with surprising velocity, their formation shifting into an attack pattern that somehow looked both precisely calculated and aggressively unpredictable. The syndicate ships, detecting the approaching threat, abandoned their pursuit of the transport to regroup. It was a disciplined response that had served them well in previous encounters with Council security forces. Establish defensive positioning, assess the opposition, then either engage or retreat based on favorable conditions. They never got the chance to complete their assessment. The human vessel struck with a coordination that suggested either hardwired tactical systems or crew members operating with near-telepathic efficiency. Energy weapons disabled the syndicate ship's primary propulsion systems within seconds. Before they could deploy, countermeasures, smaller craft launched from the human vessels, attack shuttles moving with impossible agility. They're boarding the syndicate ships, Kalen observed, professional appreciation evident in his voice. Classic shock tactics, disruption, followed by direct intervention rather than destruction. Thereafter, intelligence. 3 of the syndicate vessels were neutralized within minutes. The remaining 2 attempted to flee, but found their escape trajectories predicted and blocked with precision that suggested the humans had analyzed and decoded their tactical algorithms during the brief engagement. One syndicate ship self-destructed rather than be captured. The last was disabled by a precisely targeted weapons burst that left its life support intact while rendering its offensive systems inoperable. The Zephyrus is reporting successful rescue, the communications officer announced. Minimal casualties. The human vessels are escorting it to the Concordia medical station. In less than 20 minutes, the humans had accomplished what would have taken a Council rapid response team hours of engagement, with likely significant collateral damage. The implications were impossible to ignore. I believe, Chairwoman Vane said into the stunned silence, we should reconvene our discussion regarding Earth Federation membership with these new developments in mind. The following days brought a whirlwind of developments. The intelligence gathered from the captured syndicate vessel proved invaluable, revealing supply depots, command structures, and planned attack vectors. With human tactical assistance, the Council security forces organized a coordinated response that caught the syndicate completely unprepared. Reports filtered in from across the affected sectors. Syndicate operations disrupted, stolen resources recovered, hostages rescued. The humans provided advisors, but carefully limited direct military engagement after the initial intervention, allowing Council forces to claim the victories. Public opinion across Concordia and member worlds shifted rapidly. Fear of the mysterious humans remained, but it was increasingly counterbalanced by appreciation for their timely assistance. Representatives from worlds that had benefited from the intervention openly advocated for accelerated integration of Earth into the Council framework. After 5 days of emergency sessions, the Council prepared for its final vote. The chamber was filled beyond normal capacity as additional representatives arrived from member worlds to participate in the historic decision. Chairwoman Vane called the session to order. Before we proceed to the formal vote, Ambassador Reed has requested an opportunity to address the council. The human diplomat approached the central platform with measured steps. Her presence had grown familiar over the preceding days, yet still carried an intensity that commanded attention. Honorable representatives of the Galactic Council, she began, I stand before you representing a species that has traveled a very different evolutionary and social path than most gathered here. We arrived at your doorstep in ships bearing the marks of combat, an introduction that understandably caused concern. She paused, scanning the assembled delegates. Humanity does not apologize for defending itself against aggression, nor do we apologize for intervening to protect innocent lives when we had the capacity to do so. These actions reflect core human values that will not change. A murmur rippled through the chamber, but Reed continued undeterred. However, we recognize that lasting peace is not built through military action alone. Earth seeks membership in this council not merely for protection or resources, but because we believe in the fundamental principle upon which you have built this remarkable alliance, that diverse civilizations can achieve more together than apart. We offer technological exchange in medical science, sustainable energy production, and environmental restoration. We offer cultural exchange across art, philosophy, and history. And yes, we offer our unique strategic and defensive capabilities to protect the peace you have built. She concluded with a slight bow that managed to convey respect without subservience. We ask you to judge Earth not only by the blood on our ships, but by the lives we have saved and the hand of friendship we extend. The subsequent vote was not unanimous, but the majority was substantial enough to be undeniable. The Earth Federation was granted provisional membership in the Galactic Council, with a pathway to full integration over the following 5 years. As the formalities concluded and delegates dispersed to their various quarters, Chairwoman Vane found herself at one of Concordia's vast observation decks, gazing out at the stars and at the human vessels now moved into designated diplomatic berths. The controversial bloodstains remained visible on their hulls, though now symbolic rather than shocking. Security Chief Kalen joined her, his duty shift complete, but his mind clearly still processing recent events. The galaxy has changed, Vane said simply. Yes, Kalen agreed. The balance of power, the defensive equations, even our understanding of technological development paths. Nothing will be the same. Are they the allies we need or the threat we feared? Vane wondered aloud. Perhaps both. They understand force in ways the Council has forgotten, Kalen observed. Yet they show restraint that the Clack never would. Their intervention against the Syndicate was surgical, proportional. They could have destroyed those ships, but chose capture instead. Vane's crystalline form shifted hues in the equivalent of a thoughtful sigh. Ambassador Reed speaks of peace, while General Thorne prepares for war, which represents the true face of humanity. I wonder. Both, I suspect, Kalen replied. That may be their greatest strength, and what makes them so unsettling. They embody contradiction. Scientifically innovative yet ruthlessly practical, capable of both compassion and calculated violence, unified in purpose yet embracing internal diversity. On one of the human vessels, the Thorne brothers stood in a private communication chamber, speaking with the encrypted link to Earth High Command. Provisional membership achieved, General Thorne reported. Initial technology exchange is scheduled to begin next week. Defensive cooperation frameworks under negotiation. The Council response to the Syndicate demonstration exceeded expectations, Dr. Thorne added. Their security forces performed adequately once given proper intelligence and tactical support. Several species show particular promise for deeper military cooperation. The Earth Federation president's holographic image nodded with satisfaction. And the primary objective? No indications they've detected the quantum signals, Dr. Thorne replied. Our long-range arrays continue to monitor the approaching signatures from the galactic rim. Current estimates remain unchanged. 5 years until potential first contact. The Council needs to be ready by then, General Thorne added grimly. The Clack were just foot soldiers. What's coming next will make them look like a border skirmish. Then we have 5 years to prepare our new allies, the president said. Humanity survived its trial by fire. Now we must ensure the galaxy survives what's coming. The blood on our ships will seem a small price to pay in retrospect. As the transmission ended, the brothers shared a look that contained centuries of human history. All the wars, all the mistakes, all the hard-won wisdom that had forged their species into survivors. Do you think they'll be ready? Dr. Thorne asked. They'd better be, his brother replied, looking out at the glittering expanse of Concordia. Because this time, it's not just humanity at stake. Beyond the known galaxy, beyond even the reach of Earth's quantum detection network, something vast and ancient stirred from eons of dormancy, drawn by the ripples of civilization spreading through the stars. The true test was coming, and the blood-stained ships of humanity were merely the harbingers of a far greater storm.